Hello. Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome. Really excited to have a conversation with the founders of Catala. CrowdStrike and Windows going down can't stop innovation and entrepreneurship, nor this platform. So hopefully everybody tuning in is in good shape. And potentially maybe you're grounded at an airport and you just have now the opportunity to tune in. So there's like an entirely new opportunity for you to learn something. But we're excited to have you here. My name is Stuart DeCew. I'm the executive director of the Yale Center for Business and the Environment, which is a joint initiative between the Yale School of Management and the School of the Environment. And we are the organizer and owner of the Sustainable Venture Prize. And the two folks you see here, Claire and James, won the Sustainable Venture Prize this past year. That's just one of many things that this group, Catala, has won across Yale and been recognized for. I mean, it won 2 of the Startup Yale Innovation Prizes, which happens every year in the spring. Come in April, you'll get to see more folks like them pitching. April 4th and 5th of 2025, I believe are the dates. They won the Roberts Innovation Fund Award, which you can see through the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences. More on the faculty student PhD connection. It's an amazing award. They've been involved in Sci-City. They're a member of Climate Haven, the local climate tech incubator that's in New Haven. I mean, this is a group that is taking advantage of all the resources we have to offer here and being recognized for it. And so I want to get into a conversation with James and Claire about their journey and path and what they're solving. And so, when you win all these things or you see all this stuff around, like Yale is sending out press releases on you or they're putting your name on things. And so, James, I just want you to imagine, you're walking across campus and like somebody asks you for directions and you're giving him directions. And I've seen James walk. And so he's walking pretty quickly. So it's nice that he stops. And then the person says, I think I've seen you. Like, where have I seen you? And then you're like, oh, well, I've, won a couple of things around campus. I've founded this company called Catala. And they get really curious. And they're like, well, what does this do? How does it work? Can you tell me about it? And so you just move over to a park bench and pull out your laptop. And you say, well, actually, I was just running toward a pitch. So I'm happy to talk to you about it. Can you tell us, like, for that person on the street you just met from around Yale, like, pulling open your laptop, like, what does that look like? What's the challenge? What's the solution you have? What's the challenge that you're solving? Like, what's the problem out there in the world that you're running toward?
Yeah. Well, first off, Stu, thanks for, having us here today. We're super excited to talk about Catala and our mission and then what we do. And well, first, I'd probably say to them, we treat water, right? So our membranes, that's what we do. We build membranes. Treat a certain type of water. Now, this water comes from the oil and gas industry. It's called produced water, and it's this incredibly gritty, saline, really, really nasty water that comes up in the production of oil. And so for every barrel of oil that's produced in the United States, around 5 barrels of produced water are generated. And so that total is actually, just last year, over 25 billion barrels of water, over 1 trillion gallons of this stuff. So it's a lot of water, and this water has to go someplace. And I think we have some of the slides that we can bring up now. And this is what I do. I flip my laptop, pull it up, and so what Catala does is replace a failing system in the treatment of this water. So oil production happens onshore, it happens offshore. And offshore, a lot of this water is discharged. Most of it is discharged to the sea. Of course, it has to meet strict regulations, right, for the amount of oil that's in water. You don't want to sheen on your ocean. You don't want to be harming, any sort of aquatic life. And currently, they use a system called granular activated carbon. Essentially, think of a big Brita filter on a boat, right, to take this oil out of water. But it fails in many different ways, right? It can't treat some of the oils that are found in this water. Is very costly, and it's extremely carbon intensive to treat, right? With a Brita filter, you have to throw it away. And you produce this granular activated carbon by incinerating organic material. So it's already an extremely wasteful and expensive solution. So Catala comes in, and go to the next slide. to destroy these contaminants. So rather than separating this pollution from water using physical means and then having to treat it offsite somewhere else, Catala's concept really is using a catalyst that we put inside of a membrane to enable this destructive process where we can destroy these contaminants in situ with no extra steps. So that's the idea, right? Is that Catala's solution destroys these contaminants one step as they pass through the membrane. And go to the next step, or next slide, I mean. And one of the reasons why we're focusing so hard on this industry in particular is because, you know, there are huge cost savings and opportunities for environmental protection here, right? Using this destructive-based method rather than a separative-based technology, you know, we can offer massive cost savings for less energy, you know, in a more efficient manner. And so that's really what we're all about.
Great. And so, you know, Claire, like can you get us into the kind of like weeds of how this works? Like if you're building this membrane and creating it, like what's happening here? Why is your solution, as James was like expounding on, like what is better about what you're doing? And how is it an improvement over the existing set of solutions? Like, take us into the kind of mind of the PhD that is thinking about the science and then translating it into practice for like this technology to be commercialized.
The existing set of solutions really relies on separation rather than destruction. And so we're really targeting on breaking down these molecules at the fundamental level into carbon dioxide and water. And that allows us to reduce the toxicity of the water rather than having a concentrated waste stream that requires subsequent disposal. And so these processes are called advanced oxidation, and that's something that we really focus a lot on in our research lab.
Yeah. And Claire, I can imagine that there are other applications for this, right? Like there are potentially other applications. Can you describe, like, thinking about the kind of other ways that this could be utilized, like what's the sort of suite that one could imagine of where this could be applied?
Right. So advanced oxidation processes generate reactive radical species in solution, and these radical species can react with any organic molecule. And so advanced oxidation processes tend to be very good for water waste streams that have a high concentration of organic contaminants. So this could be oils, it can be phenols, it can be a molecule like PFAS, really anything that we don't want to enter our drinking water. And so we can look at using an advanced oxidation process for any kind of water-based stream that has a high concentration of organics. And these advanced oxidation processes can come in a variety of formats. So sometimes they have UV light, which is able to generate the energy needed to break down these molecules, or you can use a transition metal, which reduces the energy. And so by using a transition metal, like a catalyst, you're able to generate these radical species and break down organic contaminants at a much lower energy requirement, which is really beneficial. And so that's why we're so interested in looking at the materials element of this for treating water.
So this is like, in my layperson's mind, this is an elegant way to treat and deal with many of the hardest debate issues of the way that we produce things that are dirty and nasty in our economy right now, and that we kind of like don't like to think about, but are products of a lot of the things that we have and own or drive or run, right? Like you all have it's something that could disrupt a lot of the ways or vastly improve the ways that we, treat a bunch of different substances. And I'm wondering, the area or spot where you guys have choosing to start, like, James, how did you find it? Like, how did you get to the point of like identifying and saying, okay, we've got an elegant solution that could be applied across all of these areas? Like, how do we get to the starting point of oil and gas offshore rigs of like, we're running toward probably the biggest, dirtiest, like most like one of the most apparent and obvious areas that like, or largest problems to deal with? Like, how did you get there? What were the tools, ways, approaches that you broke it down from taking great technology to finding a really good fit in the market?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a great question. The story starts actually with a fellow Yale, actually, Staff Sheehan, who's the CTO of the air company. And right when we were starting to think about how this lab technology could be applied in the field, obviously we needed to find a market. And so we got on a call with someone who had transitioned to technology from bench to commercial scale. The air company now, sells a whole bunch of things and is very successful. And Staff told us that we should look at this ICOR program. So National Science Foundation runs a program for customer discovery. And so we went through that program. We followed his advice and we talked with, over 100 different people in the field across different industries like semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, food and beverage, and of course, the oil and gas industry. And we found that offshore market in particular, we have a uniquely positioned solution to really go after that extremely dirty water, right? They're employing a solution that doesn't work very well. It's incredibly expensive, and it's failing. And there's a real need there, right? And so finding that customer need through customer engagement, right? Just talking with these people. That's how we figured it out. But again, along that path, we were supported by many different people from Yale, including Staff. And so, and of course, none of this would be possible without our PI, Jae-Hong Kim, who's a professor of environmental engineering. And he was with us every step of the way and continues to do so today. So.
Yeah. And Claire, could you talk, that's an interesting connection. Can you talk about the relationship of like a, PhD student and the faculty member and the encouragement or support to kind of look at markets and sort of take technology from the lab and also like going through an ICOR program or thinking about the kind of market application, like what do you find interesting or curious or engaging about that process as someone with deep technical expertise to be able to build, test, and understand technology in a lab?
Right. So Professor Kim has really been very supportive of us looking at markets for technology coming out of his lab. It's really something that goes well with the current initiative in the Yale School of Engineering and Applied Science. And there's a really big focus on bringing startup technology out of research labs. And so, and the research that we do in our lab is very well positioned to meet that goal. It's really exciting to be able to see a real world application of the research that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And moving forward as we really work towards some of the climate goals that we've set both within the United States and abroad, developing technology that can meet those goals is going to require new innovations coming from a broad range of sectors, but especially in environmental engineering. And working within water, we have some of the best resources at Yale to be able to accomplish significant changes to the way that we're treating our water.
Great. Okay. So you've got all these supportive faculty, resources here, great expertise. You've found your market fit. There's these other elements. And James, can you tell us what stage the technology is at now in terms of development, and where do you see the challenges going forward as you're building this out? Paint a picture right now of where does the production and development of this look like, and where do you then sort of see, all right, well, here's where we're going to have to up our game and move into a different stage of development or bring different people in to be able to scale and move forward.
Yeah. So, first off, Catala in terms of a company, very early stage, right? So the technology has only just started to get off the bench about a year ago. And so really this summer, and actually with the support of the Sustainable Venture Prize, that is really, a critical step for us, and where we're getting from sort of bench to small scale to even pre-pilot scale. And so the Sustainable Venture Prize really is going to go to that construction of that pre-pilot skid. So right now over the summer, we have our first prototype, our alpha prototype of a larger scale system. So something that wouldn't normally be built at the bench, but something that can validate the process at a larger scale. And then the Sustainable Venture Prize and all of the other prizes that we've won in the past couple months will really be going to contracting out this larger pre-pilot skid to demonstrate this to potential customers, right? And of course, there are many hurdles, right, that we're going to come across and have been experiencing, currently, of course. In terms of technical challenges, in terms of length of operation, right? Many different things that in the lab we have to overcome. But I think with the resources that we've been given, like the Roberts Fund, for example, which allowed us to bring, new materials and new people actually to the lab to help us solve some of these challenges. I really think we're very well positioned to overcome those challenges in the next couple of months and hopefully next couple of years. In terms of getting to production, it will take many years, right? Probably 3 to 5 years until we have a pilot in operation, and probably 5 or more until you see something that has been developed and made by Catala in the field. But that's a timeline that we're not afraid of. It's a timeline that you have to be on board with if you want to get this really, really tough technology to market. So we're really looking forward to that, and the Sustainable Venture Prize really is invaluable in that process.
Yeah, we were talking about it before the call. Like, many of the things that we need are not yet available commercially, and will need to be developed and scaled after 2030. And I'm wondering if you all can put, you represent a trend that we see increasing at Yale, and I think broadly across universities, of like really talented technical founders who are getting market savvy and focused on this at an earlier stage. And what is the value of this non-dilutive funding at an early stage to help prove and focus on your idea? What does this do or unlock for you that if it wasn't potentially there, and they're in different forms more broadly across campus, what's it serving?
Well, using the right way, it's really effective at erasing risk, right? And so that really is the key to getting to market, is de-risking your technology. And so non-dilutive funding in particular, and in particular in the amounts that have been awarded to us through Yale, through CBEY, that amount of funding is critical in us taking a technology that is very risky, right? That has been tested on a set of lab-based samples, to then testing it in a real-world scenario. And even more real world scenarios, where engineering factors come into consideration. And so that funding, that support, really critical in just, taking that risk level down. And honestly, in terms of other young people, the perfect place to really get and dig deep into a project like this and into a company like this, if you take it from that project to a company's stage, is that risk is lower. Right, you have a network of people around you supporting you. I'm in Climate Haven, in the Climate Haven office right now, taking this call, and you have people around you that want to help, they want to support you, and they'll encourage intellectual curiosity, and that's a way to seriously de-risk technology. And so that's what we've found, I think, to be the most helpful about the awards and the support that we've received.
Cool. And just a small plug, you can go see James, 770 Chapel Street at Climate Haven. There are 25 other companies like Catala who will be hanging out there, supporting each other at any point. And Claire, I'd love for you to talk about this, James is mentioning this de-risking the technology, de-risking the business. Can you talk about the kind of how you assess the kind of personal risks and opportunities here as someone that's dedicating their time to this? And what do you see amongst what drives you to do this during your PhD? And do you see other PhD and other students who are on this path around you? And what advice would you kind of give them to kind of get involved or get engaged or test or support or bring their idea to market?
I definitely think that there's a growing trend in PhD students at Yale bringing their research to a more applied role in a startup space, and it's really a great time to be involved in starting a company like this. As a PhD student, you have some more flexibility than, say, if you're working, and there are less legal requirements about having your hands both in a startup and in the company that you're being employed by. So, and there are also really a lot of resources available to students. So Yale has the Sci Center, so we've been able to use some of their workshops and events to help develop our ideas, and that has been really useful to us. And also having Climate Haven available. Especially being a student, it seems that people just want to help you. It's a lot easier to approach people to ask questions, and while participating in the NSF I-Core program, that's actually really only open to PhD students and sometimes undergraduate students. And it's a lot easier to reach out to someone as a founder. If you can also say, okay, I'm part of this NSF program as a student, it's a lot less like a sales pitch and more like an informal chat. And people tend to be a lot more open to that kind of conversation. So I would say some of those are really big advantages of pursuing a startup while being a student, even though it does require some time and risk.
Yeah. Yeah, do you see enough people taking advantage of the magic of the .edu email address? Like, I mean, were you like surprised when you started? Like, it sounds like there's like a pleasant element of surprise in your voice when you're sort of like, almost, why are people responding to me so actively and helpfully? Like, can you describe the kind of first moments when you reached out on this, and then the responses that you got, and potentially how that kind of affirmed like your conviction of like, oh, this could be something that I could do more in, or can, spend more time on?
So the first people that we really reached out to were through existing networks that we have, NSF research centers and DOE organizations that focus on water. And so that already kind of gave us a common ground. And so that helped us expand the search, and we were able to really kind of emphasize that we want to develop technology that can treat water. And people tend to be very receptive to that kind of idea. And so I think that was another element of really being able to get a wide variety of people involved in our mission and to be able to support us.
Cool. And, James, like, you're entering into your senior year at Yale College, and you've been at this for a while now, and working at these things. Like, what do you, and you imagine you've learned an incredible amount across the way. And like, what do you like see going forward? What don't you know that you like will need to learn to be successful here? Like, what are the gaps in knowledge that you can sort of look out and see of like, oh, I'm really curious about this next stage because like, I don't know how X works in bringing this to market. Like, what are the parts that you're excited to kind of dig more into?
Yeah, well, I think the flip side to being a student is that you don't have as much experience in, the real corporate world. And I think managing some of those connections, mediating some of those interactions, that's certainly going to be a challenge. It's certainly going to require help and mentorship and guidance. And again, like getting the product to market, right, and all the steps that come with it, mainly, and the business connections, right, the contracting with a potential customer, operating a pilot, these are things that as a student, right, you have a very limited knowledge of, and that's okay, because I know that coming out of Yale, rising senior, still one more year, so 25% left. There are just so many connections that I will have made over the past 3 years and will continue to make over the next one, that will allow me to solve any sort of problem or any hurdle that is thrown my way, because I have that incredible network to lean on. And so that's really what I'm looking forward to it. Actually, like the challenges that come, and just more of an opportunity to learn. And I'm incredibly grateful that I'm in a position where I can pursue something that I'm very passionate about. That also has the chance to make a very, very huge impact on the world. So yeah, there's your answer.
Great. All right. Well, so, taking you back to like the beginning of a journey as well. Like I'd love to end a bit on like, so you've just come from an event at CBEY or Sci-City on campus. There's a group of students that are at the earliest stages of thinking about their idea. You're all like, everybody heads down to Climate Haven for an evening event, and somebody grabs you on the side and asks kind of like, what advice you would give them about, you won the prize. Like, how would you go about this, or sort of start your process or journey in thinking about this? Like, what do you say to that person who's right at the beginning at an early stage about what they should think about, what they should expect, the kind of challenges that they should expect to have, like how hard or difficult this is going to be? Like, how do you like talk to them or prepare them? Like, Claire, maybe we'll start with you on like, what do you say to that individual?
I think, especially with the innovation ecosystem at Yale, the first step is really to just start going to some of these events. Startup Yale, the Yale Innovation Summit, really to just kind of see what is out there. And a lot of startups are even looking for someone maybe part-time to help with some small task, maybe for a few months, maybe unpaid. But that's like a really good way to kind of dip your toe into the water and see if it's something that might be right for you.
Great.
Yeah, and I definitely second that. And like adding on, like just be curious. Like how I got into this is that I sent Professor Kim an email just asking, I had a question that I wanted answered, and I knew that he had the resources in his lab to answer it. And, he focused on water, and I had a background in water coming to college, but I really wanted to get more serious about it. And he was very receptive, and, he gave me the resources to sort of answer this question and help out on projects, and then bring me into his lab group. And all of that just came from one email. And so, being curious and asking the right questions, and realizing that, especially when it comes to climate, there are so many challenges that are related to climate, all interrelated. You hear a lot about carbon and emissions, but water is a huge one, and there are many, many others as well that that have to do with sustainability. And so there isn't just this sort of one track in the climate world. There are many different problems that need solving, and like you said at the beginning of the call, we are going to need many, many more people to solve these challenges. So I would say, be curious and really just pursue the questions that you want answers to, or you think should be answered.
Great. And so like, you're both very curious, asking questions and engaging, building networks and connecting out and asking for help. I'd love for us to kind of end on anything else you want to add on, like, where do you need help now? Like, imagining people on the line listening to this, sort of looking at like, okay, like Catala's at this stage, and if you have connections or resources or opportunities in X, here is where we are looking for support and help at this moment. And that's to either of you. Like, what do you need in the next 3, 6 months, 12 months that other people out there could support you in?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest thing is getting those next steps in, right? Like operating a pre-pilot, and at that scale is going to require a lot of help, particularly from people in the industry that have water to give, right? That can enable sort of these collaborative agreements where we can test with their water and see if our system works, and determine to what extent it makes sense to implement our solution in their operation. And so getting those industry partners, we have a few that we have our eyes on, but you can never have too many from that perspective. So I'd say that is, it would be huge for us to continue to connect, to continue to reiterate on our business model, and that can only be done with help from the industry.
Great. Claire, any other help that you need? I mean, you guys are wonderful at asking for, connecting, like seeking out help and support. Like, what else is on your mind, and where can people support you?
On the other side of that, I would say that market discovery and speaking with customers is always an ongoing task. It's something that really never ends, because the state of the industry is always changing. There are always new competitors, maybe from startups, maybe from a little bit larger companies. So that is another thing that we kind of always have our eye on. And and something that we really always come back to when we have time.
Great. Well, any final thoughts or words of inspiration for the crew out there listening? Anything you'd like to share?
Anything that I'd like to share? You know, I think I would say that especially if you're in college, right? And as I'm coming into my senior year, a lot of my friends do have, sort of these job offers after school, and they have this sort of stable career track for the next 2, 3, 4 years. Who knows how many? And I remember in high school, right, thinking, okay, well, 4 years college, like I'll have all that time to figure it out. And now I'm going into the 4th year, and it's sort of like a question mark, but not really, because I think that although I don't really know where we will be in 1 year from now with Catala, there are many hopes, there are many dreams that I have, and it's very exciting to be able to pursue that to the fullest extent. And I think that all of the resources that Yale has given me has allowed me to do that. And so that's something that I really hope that other people can take advantage of. Like there is security in doing something risky sometimes if you have a network around you that can make it happen and increase your chances of being successful. So that's what I would say to someone. Final thoughts.
Great. Thank you. James, Claire, really appreciate you taking the time today. You did an amazing pitch at Startup Yale. You've also won prizes at the Yale Innovation Summit. You all have been well recognized and deservedly so for the kind of quality of the science, the acumen in the market, and your approach to connecting, learning from other people, and reaching out. So it's really been a treat to talk with both of you today. As a reminder for everybody, like if you'd like to see more people like James and Claire, there's a demo day at Sci-City for the summer fellowship that'll happen in early September. You can find that on their website. You can come to Startup Yale in April and be able to see all these pitches from across campus. And you can also see us at the Yale Innovation Summit at the end of May, where you'd have 2,300 people from all around the world coming here, venture capitalists, early stage companies, strategics, all convening on different topics at the university. And so lots of opportunities and points to have conversations like this with really smart, talented folks like James and Claire in and around the university. So really looking forward to seeing where you all go and being a support going forward. And thanks again for tuning in for all those who are out there, and have a great day.